So I got to wondering, can you make a giant arrowhead and it be just like a spearhead? Are they the same thing, just bigger? Hi folks, Matt Easton here of Schola Gladiatoria, and I'm here with Will Sherman of Medieval Arrows. So I'm over here today to do a few things, do a little bit of filming, and I got to thinking, can you just make one of these arrowheads like Will churns out so many of? Can you just make them bigger and it be like a spearhead? What are the challenges in making something bigger, thicker, heavier? Is it just the same thing, scaled up? Let's see. So I put this idea to Will, and well, there's a lot of unknowns. We're going to find out, and I'm going to have a go at forging myself. First thing Will asked me was what type of head, and obviously there are lots of spearheads that correspond to types of known arrowhead. And we could have gone with this massive barbed type thing, and we know that they were used on darts, on throwing darts in Ireland, for example, and other places. But I've decided to go for a type of head which is more typical of a spearhead of the 14th, 15th century, which is like that one there, which has a sort of diamond shape. I'm actually going to draw it up here. Will's invited me to draw on his forge. So we're going to have to obviously use, there's some challenges. We're using a larger piece of metal, steel in this case. Will's forge here, you're set up for arrows, aren't you?
Yeah, I make arrows every day, all day, every day. So it's a really tiny fire compared to most industrial forges. Right. All of the tooling is designed for holding small work. Yeah. You'll find that that's going to be an awful lot of work to start working that into a into a spearhead. Even the socket's going to be a lot of work, and we'll just see how it works on the. Yeah. It's a charcoal fire. It's bellows powered. Everything is done, you know, with human body power. Yeah. So it'll be quite interesting. Yeah. So fundamentally, we're looking at a spearhead which is fairly straight in the top part and has this sort of diamond shape to it. Okay. Like that. And then flares out slightly to the socket with a mid-rib coming down here and then sort of fading out into the socket there. Okay, so I would call that a Type 10 arrowhead. Yeah, is that what that is? That's what that is, yeah. Okay, so it corresponds to a Type 10 arrowhead where we're just making a big one, and this is a very popular style of spearhead. We find archaeologically, you find one surviving, but you also see it in a lot of the manuscript art from the 14th and 15th century. But to make this socket, well, you tell us, so what are we going to have to do to make these different bits? There's a few different ways of doing this, and depending on what you start with. We're starting with round bar. To make that as a wrap, you're going to, I'm not going to do it, you're going to do it all. I'm going to stand back and watch. If you're starting with your round bar like that, you're going to have to forge that out into a really wide, flat triangle. Like a sort of, triangle shape. And then you're going to roll it up. Rolling up is easy, but this is where all of your work is going to go. Okay. So hopefully you've got a day. Because it's the rolling up that actually concerns me the most, because I've never done anything like that. That's a piece of cake, doing that bit. Okay. This is just going to tire you out real quick. That bit's easy. Yeah. Compared to this. None of it's easy, but compared to that, it is. It's just going to be a lot of work. This is why you have power hammers and trip hammers and things, is to do all the work that you're about to do. Yeah, and we're starting out with a rod section of steel that has to be at least the thickness of the centre of that midrib. Yeah, so I showed you a bunch of stock that I've got, and you said none of them are quite thick enough to make this. You can't make it thicker without upsetting, which is another process. Yeah. So we have to start with over, because you're going to forge it down as well, and then grind it to shape and whatever. Cool. So it's got to be over that shape. Brilliant. Which means that that's a lot of work, but that's fine. So well, we'll see, won't we? We will, yeah. Let's go. And then just keep checking, just pull it out, have a check. What am I checking for? We just want something orange, yellow, that's getting there, yeah. Wow. Yeah. That looks hot. So this end is going to be the fan to begin with. So you're going to bring it out and you're just going to welly it. Just to get a feel, because it's not going to go anywhere, it's not going to move much at all. Until it starts to get thin, then you'll be amazed how fast it does start to move. But you can just warm up and get your hammer. And then also presumably heat up quicker once it gets thinner as well. Yeah. And as the bar starts to heat up, it will retain its heat for longer as well, which is quite nice. Of course it loses a lot of its heat to this, doesn't it, when it's... Yeah. And this will heat up? Barely at all, yeah. No? Even after a full day, it's not really hot at all. Oh, wow. So yeah, whenever you want to, because it's safe whenever. Cool. You can just bring it out and just welly it, and you'll just start to get a feeling of it. So I'm just basically trying to spread out that end into a flat. Do you know how long you want the socket to be? Is that close to? Yeah. Well, yes. Yeah. Doesn't need to be as big as that, but like 5 inches, 4.5 inches. Yeah, that's enough, isn't it? Maybe for you. If we start with 4, that's here.
Ooh, that's
perfect.
hot.
Bring the end onto that white mark.
There?
Yep.
Yeah.
Just welly it. Perfect. Now you can go if you want to.
Yeah.
Yep. Mild steel, so it's not going to crack like carbon steel would.
Okay.
At low temperature. Good. Yep. How does that feel?
Yeah, good.
Good. Just got to keep going.
It's actually squishing a bit more than I expected.
Once it's quite flat, you can move to the cross peen, which will really spread it out fast.
Oh, okay. So putting essentially lots of divots in it.
And it will only move in one direction that way, rather than it being wasted by being spread out.
Right.
And of course, as you said, it will heat up now quicker because it's thinner. An arrowhead, to get from your square bar of an arrowhead into that shape, that's 1 heat normally.
Right.
So we can time it. You can see how many heats this will take, but it's very different.
My left arm's not used to that.
That's worth checking, probably. It's
yeah. Cool. Oh, got to get the tongs the right way around now. That's the only. There we go. It's bending.
Good. Don't worry, it's fine.
No?
Yep. We've got loads to go yet. We've easily got the length now.
Yeah.
So what you can do on your next heat is do the same as you did before, but just drop the bar down slightly so you're at an angle, and then just welly it with the hammer half on the anvil and half off.
Okay.
And that will give you like a nice sharp corner, and then you can always use that as a reference point and just keep it in the same place.
Right, okay.
Because in the end, what we actually want, looking at it from the side, if here's your round bar, you then want a big step like this, and that's where the socket's going to be. Right. Because when you roll it up, that's then going to be a nice, neat transition hidden away in here.
Right.
Rather than it being tapered like that, which is then hard to deal with. That's nice.
That's because I've got 2 hands on it.
Okay. You can hear that it's changed a little bit. You've got more air coming out.
It's much more intense.
Yeah.
Who needs CrossFit?
Right.
Just become a blacksmith.
1 massive left shoulder and 1 big right wrist.
Have you had to deal with any injuries?
Yeah, you get burnt most days. Little tiny, nothing important burns.
I was thinking more about sort of joints and muscles. And
I've had, they call it blacksmith elbow, but it's tennis elbow essentially. From overworking with, actually what's interesting is I found out recently actually from a friend of mine, he's a much better blacksmith than I am. If your hammer handle isn't shaped to your hand, you're over gripping too much, and it puts strain in weird places.
Right.
And I've had that happen.
Have a look.
That should be absolutely fine.
Yeah. Ooh.
Perfect. Yeah. Good. The closer you are to white, the more it will move.
So I want to stick a bend in it.
Yep.
Basically. Right.
Good.
Like that.
Yep. That's good. Yeah. So now every time you come back to the anvil, you lock it into that little reference point, and then you can work.
Cool.
How are you feeling?
Yeah, good. Yeah. It's good exercise.
It is, yeah.
So how old do you reckon this pump is?
Those bellows are 1803.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
1803?
Yeah, 1881, those ones. I've got another set that's older.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Wow.
They were restored. I restored them for an event that I did a few years ago. They're a Birmingham All Days and Onions set.
Amazing.
If I was doing this at this point, I would take it to just below welding heat, which is where the metal starts to sparkle in the fire.
Okay, yeah.
Because it's the softest there.
Yeah.
But of course, the danger is that you then melt the steel.
Yeah, it'll burn. Yeah.
Yeah. That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So find your reference point. You can take the bend out now because that reference point will always be in there.
All right, like that.
Yep. Yeah, and that bend as well. Actually, that right angle. If your hand's uncomfortable down here,
it's all right.
Okay. Yeah, good. You want 3 inches?
Okay.
Yeah.
I find that hammering. Well, I think I'm probably more used to hammering things than pumping things.
No comment. There you go. That's your finished shape. You've just got to fill that template now.
Oh, it's really good having that reference.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. Is this all right?
Yeah, it's perfect. Don't make it too thin.
Cool.
Good. Compare it to our 3-inch template. So that will all come out.
Yeah.
Once you start working this middle bit.
Okay.
You've now got to focus on here.
Okay.
Because that won't roll and wrap.
Right. Yes.
So you want to spread this by keeping it exactly where it is.
Okay.
And just working.
And it needs to be bowed outwards.
Yeah, that will happen because it's already tapered.
Right.
As you flatten it, everything will spread out.
Yeah.
So where it's narrower, it will spread less.
Cool.
You want to keep it here and just work flat.
Cool. And the sort of background heat radiation, basically, of the whole thing has gone up, hasn't it?
Yeah, so exactly. Everything's getting hotter and hotter. The bar's now going to be. That's what you call a black heat. It looks cold, but that will burn your skin very quickly.
Yeah, yeah.
This is definitely the hardest part. Is understanding this transition area here. Making it flat's fine, and making a point's okay, but getting it so it actually works as a functional spearhead is a different thing.
A lot easier to make a tang.
Yeah, yeah, it is. But
it's just making 2 points.
If you make a tang and your hammer control here is no good,
yeah,
that becomes too weak and it will snap.
All right.
You'll have those kind of stress radius areas, and if it's too unshouldered, when it goes into something and it impacts, you're just going to open the arrow shaft or javelin shaft up.
Yeah.
So actually, there's quite a lot of work involved here.
But more in the design rather than the actual...
Yeah, once you know what you're doing and you can do it. I mean, you'd get some really weird results if you looked at a skeleton who was a blacksmith from, let's say, 7 or 8.
Yeah.
There'd be some all kinds of weird things going on, wouldn't there? And they go, oh, it must have been a pikeman.
Yeah.
Because it is, whatever,
But, having been an archaeologist, archaeologists like something to, like a label, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't like to say, well, we don't really know.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
This is my theory, and...
Then it takes one person who likes archery to go, well, he said that, therefore... And then
also, just playing the odds, if I was having to write a report and my director had said to me, maybe make it, what's your opinion of who they were and what they did? It was like, well, here's a ship we know was full of archers with lots of longbows. Let's say they were an archer rather than a shipwright.
Which is boring. It doesn't work for the story. Yeah.
Blimey.
That's the heat you want to be working at, really.
Socket longer.
That's okay.
But we'll call that a design feature
now.
Intentional. And archaeologists will argue over, why did this type have a longer socket?
Exactly. Call that a type 11 with
It must be something to do with armour penetration. And then some fencers will come along and say, oh, it slightly changes the balance, and I think that this technique now is a lot easier with this particular spear.
We know nothing, do we? We just don't know anything. We know too much almost.
It's just a pointy thing for stabbing people with at the end of the day.
And someone made a difference to that person. And so bring those up, otherwise that's going to be really uncomfortable. I need to straighten that, don't I?
Yeah.
Good.
It's nice and easy. And then this bit. It's a little bit cooler up that end, unfortunately.
That's okay.
Yeah, stopping the left hand from wandering around.
It's hardest part, isn't it?
Yeah. So every time you hit it, it wants to yank it in another direction. Probably because I'm not hitting as square as I should be. Right. So I want that. So Will helped me out a bit there because I was flagging, but we reckon we're getting pretty close now. You can see it's a kind of, it looks a bit like a little spade or a trowel, doesn't it? So we could stop here and have a handy trowel, but I'm determined to have a spearhead. So yeah, what do you reckon?
We need a bit more width, I think, another ½ an inch.
Okay. So we're aiming for 3 inches wide, and we're on about 2.5 inches.
And then just tidying up the transition areas here. So as you start to roll it up, things get neater. You could roll that up and it would look like a dog's dinner. And I can't let it leave my forge like that. So we'll just tidy things up now. And
so this is essentially going to be the junction between the blade and the socket.
So we want more width here to bring the shoulders out a tiny bit more.
Okay.
And in that process, things will open up anyway.
So it wants to, these edges want to be more bowed out. Incidentally, if you're wondering, this looks dark on screen, but the heat radiating from this, I mean, you could definitely iron your shirt with that. Be a bit messy, but yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? So, right, okay, so let's try and get that final shape, but we're getting relatively close now, aren't we, to
start thinking now about making it look good. So all of that thickness there wants to be pushed into the corners.
Okay. And
all of these wobbly edges, you want to just start pulling material into those dips.
Yeah.
And very quickly that will look quite nice.
But I think at the edges we're at about 1.5 millimetres now, 1.5, and you can see we started from that bar there. We're now down to something that's about the thickness of the end of a sword blade up here.
Yeah, and then dragging to the edges if you can.
It cools down so much quicker now, doesn't it?
Isn't it? Okay, so 80 mils our end goal. 70. Hang on, I'll just drag those corners out one last little while it's still movable. So I'm going to do it on here. And pull it this way. It's loud though.
Okay. Okay. Most.
You can do the last little bit. So what I was doing, so I'm coming basically around the anvil. This kind of slightly domed bit's great, and I'm just dragging it.
Okay, cool.
Me.
So bringing out those corners of the skirt.
Yeah.
Sort of around here.
You've got more mass underneath you.
Right.
That's good.
It bounces. The hammer bounces back up more. Rebounds.
Good. Should we call that it?
Yeah.
It's got to be well over 3, or we are over 3 inches, yeah.
Nice.
Good.
So there we go. That's sort of as close as I can get to the right shape. So we're going to have a go. We're going to try rolling this now.
Roll it up.
We're going to try rolling it up into a cone, aka a socket. This is hard work.
So to roll it up, we're not changing the shape, we're no longer forging, we're just moving what you've already made. You're going to do it in here.
Oh, right.
With the cross peen.
Okay.
And that will give you an immediate...
So hammering on the inside to make it curl.
And as soon as it's not flat and it's come up a little bit, we go back onto the anvil and we're just going to rotate everything as we go and just tap our way until it's round, basically. Okay. You'll feel it as it starts to happen. We want a kind of ready orange heat for this. We're not forging. We just want it to move without breaking on us. Bring it back. And the most important thing about making a socket is to ignore the actual opening, the end. If you focus on that and it gets too tight and you can't do anything with it, So we're gonna bring the rounding part with that.
Yeah.
And then it's all focused on the shoulders. This transition here is all you care about. You ignore that bit entirely.
Okay.
You just think about that bit there.
So we start off forming that part of the cone.
Yeah, and then the rest, this is the final bit.
Okay. And of course that thicker part takes longer to heat up, so.
Yeah. Bring it out, lay it in that gap, hit it with a cross beam. Yep. Bring this slightly more that way, there we go. Hit it hard, you're not going to do any damage to it. All the way along. That's it, perfect, yep. Bring it round again slightly more, yep. See that starting to dish out?
Oopsie.
Good.
Back in the heat?
Yep. So you're going to lay it on edge, like this, and you're just going to hammer down and close it up. On the edges of the cone? And you're going to rotate all the time. Otherwise you just kind of fold it, which is no use. Does it not need to go in there anymore? You can do it, yeah, if you want to. But as soon as you've got the edges over past flat, the hammer will do that for you. Yep. Ooh, that's hot. Yeah, so do one more. Yeah, I'll do a little bit more curling. Right, so on edge, bring it into the middle of the anvil. That's it. Just start to close it up. Bring yourself slightly more there. That's it. There you go. Yep. Got a bit of a weird shape going on. Don't worry, that all disappears. Ignore that for now. So we're still not forging, we're just moving this into position. That's perfect, yep. So forge those shoulders and bring it back so the bar's off the anvil until you're there. Oh, I see. Yep, and rotate as you go, that's it. That's when I lose the grip on it. Yeah. Okay. Oh, losing that. Awkward, right? Mm. Yes. That'd be awkward. Yep. I'm just going to bring these in a little bit. Yeah. Because they're making everything really big and awkward. Yeah. Wow, they move quickly because they're so much thinner. Yeah. So I'm going to tuck one side under the other. So you can see that starting to neaten up already. Yeah, yeah, it looks way better now that you've taken over. So now it's going to be entirely focused here. Yeah. And just getting rid of those kind of ugly joins and just getting a nice taper. So the socket's going to probably end eventually about here. Yeah. We want to bring all of this in to get rid of all of that ugly. It's looking good. The socket's probably thinner than I was aiming for, but no, you know, I think it's too late to do. We probably should have spread more out, shouldn't we? But there we go. You live and you learn. Yeah. But that's really cool.
I mean, it looks like a socket.
Yeah, I mean, it's functional.
Yeah.
It's not pretty yet, but it will be. We've got our round bar.
Yeah.
And we've got the kind of slightly odd ear sections here.
Yeah.
And then we've got all of this openness in here.
Yeah.
We want to bring all of that down by working here, ignoring this, otherwise it gets too tight.
Yeah.
And as soon as it's a flat round bar going into a wide section, that area then needs to be brought in even further to get that happening, right? And that dip there, that kind of nice, all of this area is done here.
Okay.
So that as you're hammering down, the curve of the anvil is working up.
It's doing it. Doing it both sides.
And it's got to be constantly rotated.
Right.
But you'll find it easy now that the socket's been brought in.
Okay.
And it's going to be just a constant, continuous work on here while you rotate.
Okay.
And it will just bring everything in.
Okay.
That's where we want it to be.
Yeah.
That should be good. Yeah, perfect.
Right.
It's not far off anyway. Yeah, just close everything up. Tight, just make it nice and flat and even.
Round, round.
Yep. Come off the anvil slightly, a bit more. Yep. Yeah, keep rotating, keep bringing it off the anvil. We don't want to go too far up this. That's nice. Yep. Good. That bit then goes on here.
Like that.
And same thing. Don't walk too far up, because that's where our head's going to end up being. Cool, and then back into the forge. See how it's tightening?
Yeah, it's looking really tidy actually.
The further back on the tongs you are, the less effort you need to hold them really
right,
tight.
yeah. I was having problems with the hammer was slipping out. Have a look.
Really close. Yep.
Right, so on here.
Yep. More towards the socket end, yeah. Okay, so we're going to bring it out and we're going to cut it off using our cut-off hardy.
Right.
You're going to bring the piece out.
So that's an axe blade basically mounted into a into an anvil.
Exactly, yeah.
And because it's red hot, it's going to, or cherry hot, it's going to chop it off.
Exactly.
Basically.
Now there's one important thing here is not to cut all the way through, because that meeting that is a bad thing.
Sure.
So we're going to rotate as we go, and we're going to just basically forge in a groove all the way around until we can bend it off and break
Snap it off.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
And we want 4 inches.
So we're going to leave the blade about 4 inches long, because when we forge it out into a point, it's going to turn into, let's say, 6 inches.
6 inches,
or,
yeah.
Presumably this needs to be pretty hot to cut properly.
Orange, red to orange.
Okay, so normal forging.
Yeah. Yeah, we are essentially just forging it into a forging a groove into it.
And this is how pretty much similar how to fullers were made.
Exactly.
As well.
This is a fuller that's got a sharp point to it. Yeah. Yep. Okay. So socket pointing that way. You want 4 inches. So yeah, actually right where you are. Yeah. Well it hard. A good few times. This is all about left hand now. You've got to lock it in, otherwise you get grooves all the way down it. And then just rotate a bit. Find your groove.
Yeah.
Rotate a little bit.
Oh, I
keep
see.
Going. That's it.
Yeah.
And you want one big heavy hit and then rotate.
I'm worried about hitting the axe blade.
You won't. That's it. Rotate a bit.
Ah, okay. I feel like I've got the knack of it now.
Always lock.
Famous last words.
Yeah.
I'm quite a cautious person. I prefer not to charge on in, but there we go.
Okay, so that's moved out of the groove a little bit. That's it, bring it back in.
So this is what you do if you don't have an angle grinder.
Exactly. That's one of them.
It's reheating. Should we just show
yeah.
So just to show the camera, so going around, chopping a groove around here. I probably should have hit it harder to go deeper, but there we go, I was being careful. Go round, and obviously we'll do that some more so we've got enough so we can break it off.
That should be hot enough to cut, I think. Yeah. Slightly missed the...
oh yes.
That's okay, that's fine. Are they more comfortable?
Yes, way more.
Good.
Yeah, much more secure.
And we're about to lose a good 100 grams of steel off the end.
Make it easier to handle and quicker to heat up. Must be pretty close to being able to smack it over the edge now.
Getting there, yeah.
Feels like it's almost going to go through.
No, you've got a way to go yet.
It's finding those corners.
One more?
Right?
Yes, if you do it that way, you'll find that it just bounces the tongs out of your hand.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So that way?
Yeah, or go cut even further maybe.
Oh yeah. No, maybe I'll chop it a bit more.
You can do a quench and then a snap. This is just quicker, I think. It's
to make it more
brittle.
Brittle, yeah.
That'll go. Surely that'll go. Yeah. Put it in the Pritchell hole.
Oh yeah, nice.
Dude, go for that one there. Probably.
Lost the grip there. Oh, it's a bit too big. Oh, there we go.
Perfect.
Hurrah!
Good.
I think as it cooled down, that helped as well.
Perfect.
So, back in the fire, and we'll start shaping the tip.
Make a point. Yep.
So, are we going to do a point first and then a square, or a square and then a point?
We'll do the point first.
Okay. So a round point.
No, we'll do a square point.
Oh, okay.
We'll just go forward flat, 90 degrees, flat, 90 degrees, but at an angle. Does that make sense? Okay. So if that's your anvil surface there, you're going to hold your piece at an angle on the anvil, and you're going to bring your hammer in at an angle. Okay. And the anvil will forge that side and the hammer will forge that side. Nice. Rotate, do it again. 2 in 1. Rotate, do it again. There are 2 ways of doing this. The way I do it with arrowheads is I'll take it out, bring it over the anvil this way, and forge it like that. That draws it towards you. Okay. The other way of doing it, which I think is more common, is up like that. Okay, yeah. Down that way. Yeah. Entirely up to you. Are they both commonly done? Yep. Yeah, these are both classic drawing out techniques. You just prefer pulling towards you? I think so. I think with a really tiny head, you've got more control near your body rather than drawing out. There you go. Nice. So just feel what you think's more comfortable. Okay, so off the edge of the anvil, so the hammer's got somewhere to go. Like that. Yeah. And then rotate 90 degrees, and you're making it square. There you go. Yeah. Try it over the angle that way, that's it. That way? Yep. And just see what you find more comfortable.
Yeah, it puts your arm in a different position, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You're more over the work that way.
It needs to be hotter. It's not, yeah.
Needs hotting.
Yeah.
Hotting up. Hotting up, that's the technical term. Hot.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Perfect.
sparkly.
Perfect.
It's bonfire night.
Hit it hard.
Oh, that's satisfying. Gosh, that moves a lot easier.
Yeah.
Gosh. Wow, it really makes a difference investing a bit more time in the heating, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Where's my arms running out of steam now? Oh.
You want to take over?
Oh, no, I'm determined to.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, I wouldn't go any further than that in terms of up the head. Good. You make it pointy at the end. We're now going to do a reverse taper, so you're going to have it. That's it.
Yeah.
Slightly further back.
And on this?
And on that. Make sure that you're in the same orientation as those squares.
Oh yes, of course, yeah. That's a really good point. Otherwise we won't meet up. The thing I always preferred about metal to wood is you can sort of always make good again with metal.
Yeah, you can't remove
up to a certain point. Whereas wood, when it goes, it's just gone.
Yeah, leave the tip alone, otherwise it will just get longer and longer and longer.
Right. Oh, that's about a centimetre thick, I'd say.
Yep. And then flip it over and exactly, yeah.
Oh. Not quite bent.
It will, it's always going to bend now.
Ooh.
That ridge is appearing now, isn't it, on both sides?
Yeah, yeah.
So when it's bending that way,
Yeah.
you want to work on the side you're on now, yeah, and it will force to bend the other direction. Yeah.
So we've actually run out of time for today, but I have made, with obviously Will's extensive help, a recognisable spearhead, haven't I?
Definitely, yeah.
And so this it's not as broad, it's probably longer than I'd intended and not as broad as I'd intended. But you know, for a first attempt, this is the first time I've ever had a go on a spearhead. And we've still got quite a lot of meat at the edges here. So in theory, if I had more time, I would either forge those out thinner, or some people would just heat treat this as it is and then grind the edges down.
Yeah.
But there we go. So we've got the socket. We've got a nice little neck there. We've got a defined kind of flare up to this triangular shape here, and then slightly leaf shaped point down to there. And that's quite similar to spears that we find actually in the Viking era. And it's not really that different to certain types of later period lance and pike heads as well. It's probably not quite as triangular as some of the late medieval heads that I was aiming for, but it's certainly similar to some historical spearheads out there. So to answer the question, so you've made spearheads in the past. Is making a spearhead just like making a giant arrowhead?
No. What we've done here is we've made one like an arrowhead would be made.
Yeah.
So we started with a big, thick bit of round stock. You'd do square normally for arrowheads. And we flattened out the end, rolled it up, and then drew out all of this square and then diamond section.
Yeah.
If I was making spearheads, I would start with a wide, flat piece of bar stock, the right thickness, but also more or less the right width of what I wanted. Taper that way and do a socket.
Right.
Way quicker, way more efficient.
Right.
But that's not how arrowheads are made.
No.
So we made it as an arrowhead, and clearly it's not very efficient, which is kind of the point, isn't it?
But I mean, we moved a lot of metal in a lot of places, didn't we? So essentially, if you were making something bigger like a spearhead, you'd try and start with something that is closer to the dimensions of the blade.
Yeah, you want to just minimise the amount of work you have to do.
Right.
We could have done that with 2 other people, like Smith and Striker would have made it quicker.
Yeah.
We had limited time and limited materials to work with.
Yeah.
And we made it like an arrowhead. That was the point.
And from a personal point of view, for someone who isn't, I've only ever forged one thing before, and that was a knife blade. One of the most exhausting things is actually pumping the bellows. So no question, if you had a gas forge, that would make your life way easier because your muscles are resting, while you're waiting for it to heat up. Instead of sitting there pumping, and then having to hammer as well, you just wait for it to get hot, and then your muscles are rested a bit. But obviously, if you was using a power hammer or trip hammer, which they had in the medieval period, they had water-powered drop hammers, that would obviously make things easier to move large bits of metal around as well. But clearly, throughout lots of periods of history in lots of parts of the world, it was one guy with a forge, with a bellows, with a hammer, and this is exactly how they did it, isn't it?
Yeah, but what's always interesting when you look at the real examples in museums is they're always a lot smaller than people think. You see photos of a spearhead or an arrowhead or whatever it is you're looking at, or a sword, and they're always thinner than people realise, and they're always drawn out further, and they're very delicate items. That's way too thick. That needs a lot of reduction.
It is overweight, but it's not crazy.
It's got a very nice thin socket. A lot of the work went into that.
Yeah.
Well done.
No, I mean, with a lot of Will's help. But anyway, so I think we've answered the question. You can make a spearhead exactly like making a giant arrowhead.
Yep.
It's just not the best way to make a spearhead. And also, we also know that certain types of spearhead were sometimes made of multiple parts that were brazed or forge welded together. So that is another way of making them as well. But nevertheless, what you've seen here today is vaguely similar to how, for example, an Anglo-Saxon or Frankish or Viking era or migration era smith might have made spearheads. So anyway, thanks once again to Will. This has been absolutely fantastic and extremely tiring. My shoulders and my forearms are really feeling it, but it's been fantastic. So thanks a lot to Will, and I'll see you again soon.
Definitely.